Hello, it's Eve. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk to you about 3 reasons why you should be drafting your own sewing patterns. It's not to say that there's not a place in the world for sewing patterns that are created and designed by other people. Totally, I'm not here to down on sewing pattern designers. I design my own patterns. I'm actually wearing one of my own. This is the Jude shirt. It's the first sample for the Jude shirt, which I created back in 2016. I love it. It's so comfy. I made it in a piece silk, which basically means silk that came from the non-demise of silkworms. I think that's how to word it right. Anyway, I'm waffling. So yeah, nothing against sewing patterns. If you saw my recent video, in it I shared a whole bunch of reasons to do with sewing pattern designers and why you might be buying patterns and why you may not be using them the best way. In today's video, I wanted to touch on 3 reasons why you should be drafting your own patterns. So the first thing is that you're going to get a better fit. It goes without saying there are different ways to create a pattern, but whichever way you use, you're likely to get a better fit. And that's because you are drafting it based upon your own measurements. You're going to be taking your body measurements, your bust, your waist, your hips, your length of your center back bodice, your length of your front bodice. You'll be taking accurate measurements of your bust point to bust point, also known as the bridge, or across bust. You'll be able to measure properly from your waist to your hips, which may differ from front to back depending on how much bottom you've got or how much belly. Like when you're drafting your own patterns, you can use your body measurements, and every block or sloper that you get is going to be tailored to you and your body. So that's the first reason to get that better fit right from the start. The second reason that you should be drafting your own patterns is because it means that you don't have any kind of rules about the fabric choice. If you ever look at a pattern, it will quite often say to you, oh, this should be made in a cotton gauze, or oh, this should be made in a stretch denim with 20% stretch, or this should be made in a four-way stretch fabric using XYZ trim. Yeah, I'm thinking off the top of my head. When it is a pattern that you've created yourself, you can actually decide what fabric you want to use. So for this shirt, the Jude shirt, I actually used a woven silk fabric. I chose that because it's quite a loose and drapey fabric, and I wanted to have that kind of loose drapey vibe. Other patterns that I've got in the works, one is designed to be a denim style jacket that would work with denim, but it actually works with other fabric types really well. That's the Lennox pattern, which you'll see in future videos, I'm sure. When you use a sewing pattern that is from an indie designer, typically, as I've already said, they will talk to you about the kinds of fabrics you should be using. And I think that can make us more rigid about what we can use. And there are so many options when it comes to fabric choice. Just because a pattern like the Hudson pants, say, which I think is true bias, I believe that pattern is supposed to be made with a knit fabric that has some level of stretch to it. I have the pattern, I've never printed that one, so I've never made that one either. I've probably got 100 patterns at least on my computer hard drive, external hard drive, just stored that I've never made. But the Hudson patterns, I do believe, requires a knit fabric. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't use that fabric, that pattern, with a woven fabric. You just need to bear in mind your different measurements. So if it says hip measurement using a stretch fabric is 120 centimeters, if you look at the finished measurements of that garment and you work out the ease, you can always size up you'd want to size up because there'd be negative ease in order to get a pattern that would be suitable to use with woven fabric. But we become so stuck on what we're supposed to do with patterns, commercial sewing patterns, that we forget that we can actually be more creative with our fabric choice. Which brings me to point number 3. When you are creating your own patterns, you can be as design-led as you want to be. So you can be really, really creative, or you can choose to keep things really simple. Now, I know some people will say, well, you can do that with sewing patterns, you can hack different patterns and you can have fun that way. But I think if you're starting with a block or a sloper that you've created yourself and it works with your body proportions and your body measurements, then you're much more likely to be successful at hacking that pattern, that block or sloper, into a new pattern that is more design-led and more focused on, it might be style lines that you want to play with, it might be fabric suppression, it might be proportions or scale, or all the other fashion design elements that I've spoken about before. I've got an article on my website, so I'll pop a link to that in the description box below and you can check that out. But there are different fashion design principles that you should bear in mind whether you're hacking a pattern or whether you're just modifying your own block or sloper into something new. I on this shirt, the dude shirt, it's supposed to have like a proper shirt collar with a stand and an actual collar, so a two-piece collar. I chose to go the kind of like granddad collar route, so this is like a mandarin collar that I've just attached, and it's quite slouchy and loose, and it gave it that kind of like granddad shirt vibe that I was wanting. So, you know, playing around, I've chosen not to add a front pocket. I've chosen not to have the button all the way up to the top because I don't like something really tight around me. This is actually a size or two too small for me because it's supposed to be oversized, but I made it when I was probably about 3 dress sizes smaller than I am now. But it is a loose fit woven garment that just allows me to still wear it at my current size, and I still have that like loose drapey feel from it. So when you are working with your own patterns that you've created yourself, your own blocks and slopers, you do then have the freedom to be as design led as you would like. Okay, those are my 3 reasons. I think that's probably plenty. Do I have any more? I don't think I have any more. If you've never created your own blocks or slopers before, I do have some articles on my website. I recently uploaded a video on how to draft your own trouser or pants sloper, so you could check that out. I also have another video that is doing like lots of great feedback on it. Many people have been successful using it, but it's how to draft a sleeve block or sloper, like a sleeve pattern, without having to rely upon a bodice front and back. So you might want to check that one out as well. Yeah, if you've got any other questions about pattern making, drafting patterns, draping patterns, modifying patterns, anything like that, do let me know in the comments below, because this channel, as I have mentioned several times, is focusing on pattern making, draping and creative pattern cutting, I guess is the word. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye. Bloopers. Thank you so much for watching. I need to stop saying I should go in the bloopers. We're gonna have to re-record it, aren't I? Maybe I can just add it to the bloopers.